Well, Australia have beaten Bangladesh, and it happened over 2 days. I'm just going to start this off with a rant, shall I?
Yes,
Shall we?
please,
Let's start with a rant. Who decided that we had to have 8:30 p.m. starts in this T20 World Cup? I know it's all about the broadcast deal and time zones and stuff, but it's 2 a.m. We're still here. No one was here in the stadium by the time the rain sort of kicked in because it was already so late. So it's really frustrating. And I know no one cares about what we have to do, but I'm talking about fans, Bharat. It was so late and it just felt so flat compared to the match we had here the previous day between South Africa and USA. So 4 neutral teams, much smaller crowd tonight, and it just didn't have the same sort of atmosphere, did it? Because people were tired.
People were tired. We are tired. I'm tired right now. And you spoke about how it's all about broadcast rights, time zones, but you do the math. 8:30 p.m. in the Caribbean or in the Eastern Caribbean is 1 a.m. in the UK, so they're ruled out. 6 a.m. in India. I can't see anyone in India waking up at 6 a.m. to watch Australia Bangladesh, to be honest. And it's 10:30 a.m. in Sydney, which is just a random time. Like if you just start at 7:30, like if there's no difference between 6 a.m. in India or 5 a.m. in India, right? So you can deal with that. There's no difference between 1 a.m. and midnight in England, so you can deal with that. And I guess if someone wants to watch a game of T20 cricket at 10:30 a.m. in Sydney, I'm sure they'll do it at 9:30 a.m. in Sydney. So even the time zones don't match. So I would really like to know why they have decided there are so many 8:30 p.m. games. Obviously, India won't play them, but yeah, I guess it's a thing in Australia where people on the East Coast, or unless it's all about Western Australia. It's a great time in Western Australia. So. And you know, which is the home of cricket, so maybe it's all catered towards Western Australia.
Yeah, okay, so that's our rant. You have to forgive us because it's 2 a.m. and watching the end of this game was just actually horrendous because every time we thought it was going to start, there was another shower and then it would stop and then it was just all about cut-off times. Australia was so far ahead of any possible DLS calculation at that time. It was all really a foregone conclusion. But what did we learn? Bangladesh came out on their side. It was almost like they were batting like a team that didn't believe that they could get more than 140, and they rolled up the pictures in the US, or thought that someone had rolled up the pictures in the US and brought them to the Caribbean.
This is something we've seen from Bangladesh against Australia in World Cup encounters, right? You go back in history, or even at times when they've had strong teams, they come up against Australia and they just freeze. And I think they just froze today. It didn't help that Mitchell Starc bowled probably one of his best or one of his better first overs we've seen. He's bowled so many of them in his career, but everything was on the spot and they lost the wicket in the third ball. And then Josh Hazlewood bowls a maiden over, and already the game seemed to have gone flat. It felt like the game was going nowhere. And even though their captain Najmul Shanto hit Hazlewood for a 6, too much excitement and amusement and surprise from the Bangladeshi journalists had behind us, because there was one guy and sat right behind me who just kept going. I'm not even kidding, Mel. After Shanto hit the 6, he must have said it at least 7 times. He just kept going, Shanto? 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 So that's how surprised he was. I guess everybody else was. The only redeeming feature for Bangladesh from this game, I have to say, are those fans, right? Like, we sat outside and watched some of their innings, and there were, I guess, 15 of them, 20 of them, and they never dropped their energy from start to finish. I don't know where they've traveled from. They had a big tiger, as they always do. And you almost felt bad for them. You're like, oh, come on, Bangladesh, break free. Like, you know, at least try to hit a few 4s and 6s. And by the time they tried doing that, it was too late. They did take Pat Cummins for 12 runs in his first over, so they might take that as a big win. But, you know, they're talking about very little wins here for them. And eventually just they fell in a heap. They've got a couple of overs in the end which allowed them to get to 140, but that's never going to be enough.
I mean, it actually sort of, I guess, really encapsulated the lackluster nature of much of this game that when Pat Cummins took a hat trick, he'd taken 2 wickets on the final 2 balls of his over, and then when by the time he came back to bowl the next over, he'd completely forgotten. So it was the lamest hat trick celebration I think I've ever seen, and it was his first in international cricket, the first for Australia since Brett Lee. But he didn't realise till Marcus Stoinis came running in. It was sort of like, oh, yeah.
Yay! He just put his hands up,
Look, for Australia, it's just they are on the box ticking exercise. It's very perfunctory. David Warner continues to do what he's been doing in this tournament, and that's make people realise that they might miss him when he's gone more than they realise. But also only 6 balls for Glenn Maxwell. But there was 6 balls that suggest perhaps that he may have turned a corner.
You'd think so, and not to forget that the pitch was playing very easy by then, especially after the rain. The Bangladesh captain said it was slow to start with, but once the rain came and it kept coming and going, there was a bit of moisture on the surface, so the pitch did quicken up, and it meant that it was the ideal pitch for Glenn Maxwell to kind of get that clarity, get some rhythm going. I think he's lacked rhythm. He lacked rhythm during the IPL. There were times when, even in the opening game of this World Cup, he times the ball perfectly. The first ball he faces from in the Oman game, and a great catch by their captain. So it's just been one of those phases for Glenn Maxwell, and maybe the 6 balls he faced today, that was the big positive. The headline might be Pat Cummins' hat-trick and David Warner half-century, but the one positive that they'll take from this game, Australia, could be the Maxwell 6 balls, because let's face it, everything else, every other box seems to be ticked. They do seem like a juggernaut right now, very different to how they started the 50-over World Cup. They seem to be on the charge, and we're off next to St. Vincent, which is where I think they all kind of have a feeling that if there is anything that could trip them up right now, it is Afghanistan on that St. Vincent pitch. So they've been working extra hard to get their team combinations and approach right for that. But at the moment, they look better than any other side in this tournament, even though there are a couple of other teams who've been unbeaten. But Australia look like firm favourites.
They certainly have, like I said, they've just been doing all the things right. It's almost robotic, just getting every part of the machinery clicking in and oiled up and ready to go. So they do look incredibly impressive. They do go to St. Vincent, play Afghanistan there, who have almost beaten them the last 2 times that they've played in World Cups, and because they don't play outside World Cups, that's the last 2 times. So that is something for them. For Bangladesh, it doesn't get any easier for them, because they are back here at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium in 2 days after playing this game, and India is there as well. So if they're overawed by Australia, will they be similarly overawed by India?
Oh, I mean, with India, they always have that extra bit where they've always felt like there were times when they should have beaten India in World Cups, like that famous 2016 World T20 match, obviously in Bangalore, where Hardik Pandya bowled the last over and Mushfiqur Rahim celebrated prematurely. It's become like he became a poster boy for everything premature at that stage, and for a few years I just stopped myself from saying something there. But and they, if not overall, they have, like, unlike against Australia, they do push India, but they never seem to find a way to get over that almost that voodoo they seem to have, voodoo or whatever the word is. It's too late at night. You know what I mean.
It's a hoodoo.
Hoodoo. That's true. Yeah, I'm the voodoo child. Yeah. Yeah, that's a bit of Jimi Hendrix, but the hoodoo, and maybe get over the line. But if you don't hit sixes in T20 cricket and on pitches like these, you will struggle, and I think they will continue to struggle. And I think if the thing had flipped over, where the Super 8s were played on some of the pitches where they played their group game, who knows, Bangladesh could have been a threat, but I just can't see them threatening any team, even Afghanistan for that matter.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with you. Who knows, maybe they will find some inspiration from somewhere, but certainly wasn't against Australia here. at Sir Vivian Richards Stadium tonight. They march on. Their winning streak in all World Cups is now up to 14.
Wow.
Just remember that. But it could all end again against Afghanistan. We are really tired. And we'll see you soon.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.